Welcome to The Rule Dictator. My name is Corlith, your host, and this is how to play Descent with the Road to Legend expansion. While putting together the script for the segment on random encounters, I realized that without knowing how to fight and move around in an encounter, the entire segment falls flat on its face. So, in this segment, I will go over the player turn, hero and monster movement, as well as hero and monster combat. I'll be skipping over the Overlord's turn for now, as it works somewhat differently depending on the type of encounter, be it random, lieutenant, or in a dungeon. I'll discuss his turn in those segments. I will round this video off with a look at some of the more confusing special abilities, props that affect the game, and looting chests. Whether exploring a dungeon, fighting a lieutenant, or dealing with a random combat encounter, the entire process is broken up into rounds where everybody gets their chance to perform actions. Each round goes like this. The heroes take their turn token and flip them to the green circle side. Each hero gets a turn. Whenever it is time for a hero to take a turn, they decide amongst themselves who gets to go. That hero must complete his turn before the next one may begin. Ending the round, the Overlord takes his turn. Once he's done, go back to step 1. Every time a hero takes his turn, he does the following: start turn, refresh cards, equip items, and take an action. To start his turn, that player flips his turn token to its red X side. Any equipment cards that the hero used last round will be in an exhausted position. Refresh them by turning them all back to the ready position. During the equip phase, the hero can switch around all of his equipment, swapping potions, weapons, and armor with gear stored in the backpack. Unless otherwise noted on the character card, a hero can equip 2 hands worth of equipment. For example, a hero can equip a sword and a shield, or 2 swords, or a 2-handed rune. The number of hands a piece of equipment uses is displayed at the bottom of the equipment card. A hero can wear a single card of armor. A shield doesn't count as armor as it occupies a hand position. Up to 3 potions can be looped onto the belt, and 2 other non-hand items can also be ready for use during the turn. Anything else must either be stored in the backpack or dropped. The backpack can hold up to 3 items. Dropped items, with the exception of relics, disappear right away, so choose wisely. As relics can never be lost, when one is dropped, place its token in the space the hero currently occupies. If the relic is not picked up before the heroes leave the dungeon, the token stays at the dungeon location on the world map. This is the part where the hero gets to do something. An action can be one of the following: run, advance, battle, or ready. When running, take the hero's speed and multiply it by 2 for the number of movement points he can use this turn. Advancing grants the character a number of movement points equal to his speed. It also grants him the ability to make 1 attack. The attack can be taken before moving, after moving, or on any of the spaces the hero passes through during his movement. Movement will be covered in greater detail shortly. A battle action simply means 2 attacks but no movement points. Ready allows a hero to place one of the 4 special battle orders on top of either moving or attacking. When moving, the order can be placed at any point during the movement. When attacking, the hero can place the order either before or after the attack. If the hero moves, he gets his speed and movement points. If he isn't moving, he gets a single attack. The orders are aim, dodge, guard, and rest. Before making an attack, the hero can choose to use his aim order. This allows him to choose the dice whose result the player doesn't like and roll them again. If the hero used 5 dice and 1 die came up with a miss and a second as a blank, he can choose those 2 to be rolled again. The number of dice to be re-rolled is entirely up to the player. He can re-roll all, some, or none of them if desired. Once the selected dice have been re-rolled, the result of the re-rolled dice plus the ones that were kept is final. There is nothing in the rules preventing a hero from spending fatigue to buy or upgrade a bunch of power dice and then using the aim order, so use this to your advantage. The aim order is removed if any of the following occur. The hero takes at least 1 wound, the hero moves at least one space. This could be caused by the hero moving voluntarily or being hit by an ability such as knockback. The hero changes his equipment, or the hero uses the order to make an aimed attack. Since moving causes the aim order to be lost, if the hero chose to move and aim, the aim order would obviously be placed after moving. On the other hand, if the hero chose to aim an attack, he could place the aim order first and then use it right away to make an aimed attack. Dodging allows you to force a dice reroll for every attack launched against you. Like the aim order, the second result is final. The dodge order is only removed when the hero gets his card refresh phase, which is at the beginning of the next turn. This means that the hero can use the dodge benefit against any number of attacks. Note that aim and dodge cancel each other out, so if an aimed attack is made against a dodging target, for that attack neither gets to choose any dice to be rerolled. It becomes a normal attack. The guard order allows the hero to make an attack during the overlord's turn as an interrupt. This means that an overlord must be ready to put his action on hold to allow a hero to resolve the use of his guard order. The interrupt can even come mid-move of a monster. For example, Sir Valadier placed a guard order during his turn. When the overlord is taking his turn, he tries to rush a monster past the hero. When the monster enters the space next to Sir Valadier, the player declares that he is interrupting to attack the monster. The overlord pauses his turn while the hero resolves his attack. If the monster survives, it can finish its intended action. Although the overlord must be prepared to backtrack an action if he didn't give the heroes enough time to declare an interrupt, if they decline to make an interrupt when given a reasonable opportunity, they can't go back and change their mind later. A guard order is removed when the hero takes damage, the hero gets to his card refresh phase, which is at the beginning of the next turn, or when the hero uses his interrupt attack. The rest order replenishes the hero's fatigue pool to full at the beginning of his next turn during the card refresh phase. A rest order is removed when the hero takes damage, or it is used to recharge the fatigue pool. In case this isn't obvious, a readied order is also lost when the hero is killed. Here are the rules when moving about the battlefield. Heroes can move a number of spaces equal to the number of movement points they have this turn. The number of movement points depends on the action the hero took and any fatigue spent on movement points. Spending a point of fatigue grants 1 movement point. As monsters always use the advance action, they get movement points equal to their speed. A movement point can be used to take a step horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. A figure can pass through a space occupied by a friendly figure, but may not end his move or attack from that space. A figure cannot move through an unfriendly figure, blocking obstacle, or closed door. Beware of moving next to a foe with the grapple ability. Once you are next to him, he prevents you from spending any movement points on anything unless he moves away from you or is killed. Figures with an action that allow both movement and attacks may perform the attacks before, after, or anywhere in between the move. Movement points can also be used for tasks other than moving. For heroes, picking up or dropping a token or item costs no movement points. This can be done even if the character has no movement, like when using a battle action. Using a staircase takes 1 point. Giving an item to an adjacent player costs 1 point. The hero taking the item may equip it, store it in his backpack, or drop it. When choosing to equip a received item, and an item needs to be unequipped to make room for the new one, the old one can be stored in the backpack if there is room, or dropped at no cost. Opening or closing a door, a rune-locked door, or a chest takes 2 points. Re-equipping costs 2 points per item. And jumping over a space, like a pit or mud, costs 3 movement points per space being jumped. Monsters can only use movement points for opening and closing regular doors for 2 movement points, and jumping over spaces for 3 points per space. Due to their size or unusual shape, large monsters have a couple of special rules when moving. When moving in a direction that is opposite to the creature's orientation, treat it like a snake, having the tail end of the figure slide into the space that the head just left. When moving diagonally, sidestep the creature's entire body. The creature's entire body must fit into the spaces being moved through. Obstacles or tight corridors may make it impossible for the creature to pass. There are obstacles that take extra movement points to enter their space, or cannot be entered at all. Beds, tables, and thrones take 2 movement points to climb up onto them. An elevated attacker gets a +1 range and +1 damage advantage. Attacking something that is standing on a bed or table from the ground does so with a penalty of -1 range and -1 damage. 2 combatants standing on elevated objects gain no advantage over each other. Obviously, melee attacks ignore the range bonus and penalty. Entering a bone heap space takes 2 movement points. Once there, a bone heap can be searched. Possible results are: on an enhancement, nothing happens. On a power surge, you find a treasure. Treat it like a treasure chest. Opening treasure chests is covered under looting. On a blank, a master skeleton spawns next to the bone heap and immediately activates and attacks. Be aware that when searching a bone heap, the Overlord is allowed to play a trap space card if he has one and has enough threat to pay for it. It takes 2 movement points to climb into a fountain. Anyone who ends his turn in a fountain is healed for 2 wounds. A figure jumping or falling into a pit space takes 1 point of damage, ignoring armor. It takes 2 movement points to climb out of a pit. Figures in a pit only have line of sight on other figures in the same pit and figures in the spaces adjacent to the pit. Figures standing outside of the pit are considered elevated and get the same advantage as if they were standing on a bed or a table. Rubble is a complete obstacle. Those spaces cannot be entered and block line of sight. A sarcophagus is an elevated object and costs 2 movement points to get into that space. Being in that space grants the same bonus as standing on a bed or a table. For 2 more movement points, the hero can search the sarcophagus. Roll a black power die to determine what happens. On an enhancement, nothing happens. On a power surge, treasure, treat it like a chest. On a blank, a master sorcerer spawns next to the sarcophagus. It immediately activates and attacks. It costs 2 points to enter a space with a tree. The figure is now shadow cloaked and cannot be hit by attacks that originate from something further than 1 space away. Be aware that a blast will affect someone in a tree if it is detonated on the tree space itself or on one of the 8 spaces adjacent to the tree. A large creature is shadow cloaked if any part of him is in the tree space. Water spaces completely block movement. You can't swim or jump over them. They don't block line of sight, so they can be useful as cover against melee enemies when attacking with ranged weapons. These are the steps you need to follow when you want to attack something. First, declare the space being targeted and the weapon or weapons being used to execute the attack. Confirm line of sight by drawing a line between the center of the space the character is in to the center of the space being targeted. Some things block line of sight, preventing a space from being targeted. They are figures, which means other heroes, villagers, and monsters, so no shooting through a friendly space to get to an enemy. It also means that you cannot shoot through one enemy space to hit another one. Other things that block line of sight are fog, rubble, and trees. Count the range to the target and roll the dice. Heroes roll the dice that are shown on the weapon card. He is also allowed to roll some or all of his power dice that match the weapon type, if he has any. Unarmed attacks are made by rolling a red die. The hero is also allowed to roll some or all of his melee power dice, if he has any. Monsters roll the dice described on their card. Now determine the success of the attack. The attack fails outright if a die shows a big X. For non-melee attacks, add up the range numbers on the non-power dice. If the number is lower than the number of spaces to the target, it is currently a miss. If any power dice came up with the enhancement result, you can choose to use either the number to increase the range of the shot, or damage, the hearts, if the shot is already going to hit. Power surges are used differently by heroes and the Overlord. For heroes, some weapons use surges to increase range, damage, or to trigger other interesting effects. This crossbow can use 2 surges to add an extra point of damage, or 3 surges to increase the range of the attack. If 5 surges were rolled, the hero could use all of them by spending 2 surges to gain +1 damage, and 3 surges to improve his range by 1. 4 surges could be used to grant +2 damage with a surge left over. Since the weapon has no ability that only takes a single surge, the leftover is lost. When the Overlord rolls during monster attacks, every pair of surges becomes +1 threat. If an odd number of surges are rolled, this leftover is also lost. Fatigue has been explained previously, but I will cover it here again for the sake of completeness. A fatigue point can be used to purchase a black power die, upgrade a black power die to silver, or upgrade a silver die to gold. Power dice can be added incrementally, but a power die cannot be upgraded after it has been rolled, and there may never be more than 5 power dice used in a single attack. At this point, if the attack hits, we calculate how much damage the weapon or monster does. Damage is calculated by adding up the hearts plus any surges that were assigned to doing damage. Armor reduces the amount of damage inflicted by an attack. A shield can also be used to reduce damage. The Pierce ability ignores armor up to its rating, but doesn't work against a shield. Here is the formula. Damage was tallied in the previous step. Base armor is taken from the armor value on the hero or monster card. Only heroes can wear armor and its value is added to the base armor to give the reduction value. Subtract the Pierce rating from the damage reduction value, but go no lower than 0. If the hero activates a shield, add its rating to the reduction value. Finally, subtract the reduction value from the damage to get how many wounds are inflicted. Having the amount of incoming damage reduced to 0 is completely legal. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. A monster attacks one fist and does 5 damage. His base armor is 2 and he is wearing leather which is worth 1 for 3 points of reduction. The monster has Pierce 2, so the reduction value is lowered to 1. Since he has a shield that hasn't been used this turn, he activates it, adding another point to the reduction value, totaling 2 points of reduction. One fist takes 3 wounds of the original 5 damage from the attack. If Astara, with a base armor of 0, were attacked while wearing leather, which grants 1 point of armor, and is attacked by a monster with Pierce 2, her damage reduction value drops to 0 since Pierce never allows the reduction number to go into the negative. End result, she takes full damage from the attack. Some weapons have a note about adding damage when being used in the offhand. This is called dual wielding. Although one weapon is being primarily used in the attack, the second weapon is also contributing. It is possible to have 2 one-handed weapons equipped that don't have an offhand ability. In this case, although 2 weapons are being held, only one of them is doing damage. Imagine equipping a sword in one hand and a crossbow in the other. Take this hero. He has 2 enemies. One is next to him and the other is a couple of spaces away. Since melee weapons do more damage than ranged ones, the hero declares a battle action and attacks the monster next to him with the sword. If it survives, he can attack it again with the sword. If it doesn't, he can use the crossbow when making a second attack to shoot the other enemy. Although most of the special abilities are easy to understand, there are a couple that are a bit baffling. I will showcase Blast and Knockback. The Blast ability turns the target space into the center of an explosion, hitting everything within its radius. The size of the explosion depends on the rating of Blast. Blast 1 will hit the target and every space adjacent to it. Blast 3 hits every figure within 3 spaces of the epicenter. In short, the rating defines the blast radius. As expected, obstacles like rubble, walls, and closed doors that block line of sight of the blast point are effective cover. For example, figures standing here behind this rubble pile are safe. The magic item Bane only grants blast ratings if a certain number of surges have been rolled. The attack starts out as a normal magic attack and can be converted to a blast if enough surges come up. The rating can be upgraded again as often as you like, as long as there are enough surges to pay the cost. Items like Ice Storm and Flame Strike have a starting blast rating, but can also be upgraded further with surges. Using the blast ability is a choice. Without it, the attack is a standard single target ranged or magic strike. When choosing the target space for blast, the standard line of sight rules for making an attack apply. Therefore, you cannot target a space you cannot see due to line of sight obstacles, like rubble, the far side of a large monster, or a monster behind another monster, unless you have the precision skill, which lets you ignore a single obstacle or figure. You cannot target a blocking obstacle, like rubble, a wall, or a closed door since it will simply contain the explosion. Those are used as cover after all. Once the target space has been selected, count the distance between it and the caster and roll the dice. As with any attack, an X is an automatic miss. If the total of the range numbers on the dice is less than the distance to the target space, even after adding power dice enhancement results, the attack also fails. Be careful about where you cast Blast, as it hits friend and foe alike. If anyone in range of Blast is dodging, they are entitled to choose which dice are to be re-rolled only after the original damage has been applied to the figures who are not dodging. If more than one person is using dodge, the first dodging player to the left of the caster gets to pick which dice are to be re-rolled for everyone. This means that all non-dodging characters take the first roll results, and all dodging people take the second result. And yes, it is possible for the second result to be even worse than the first. Finally, blast damage is still mitigated by armor and shields. When something with the knockback ability inflicts at least 1 point of damage before armor reduction, the attack can move each affected target away from the attacker by 4 spaces minus the size of the target. For example, a hero or a beastman, which occupies 1 space, can be pushed back up to 3 spaces. A hellhound takes up 2 spaces, so it can be pushed back 2 spaces. Anything larger like naga, spiders, giants, and demons cannot be knocked back. When something is thrown past a creature with aura or grapple, they are unaffected unless they land in range of the ability. If they land within the area of effect of an aura, damage is only taken once, even if the flight took them past several squares that would normally inflict damage, as the landing space is the only one that is considered as movement. Props are objects in the game which add ambiance and flavor to the adventure area. A giant mushroom takes only 1 movement point to get under its cover, and it grants the Shadow Cloak ability. Unfortunately, any damage taken while there also acts as if the attacker had used the poison ability. Villagers are neutral characters that the heroes have to protect and rescue. They have 1 armor and die after taking 6 wounds. Although immune to traps, they can be attacked by monsters. Villagers can move 4 spaces per turn and take their movement after all of the heroes. They are controlled by the heroes. When a hero opens a chest, or a chest equivalent like a bone heap or a sarcophagus, the party rolls 4 black power dice and consults the following table for the result. The party collectively decides what kinds of potions, whether healing or vitality, are found when potions are rolled. Items are distributed to all heroes and may be equipped immediately. No need to spend movement points to group up around the chest. If a chest does not contain at least 1 draw from a treasure deck, in other words, no blank die results were rolled, the party gets a conquest token as a consolation prize. I think I've talked enough for now. In the next segment, I will go over random encounters, for real this time. For those of you who are lazy or have a hard time figuring out what is or is not in line of sight, take a peek at the line of sight checker tool that is part of the fan-built tactical compendium at the URL below. I also extensively use the mobile quick guide for putting this segment together, so I'm giving credit where credit is due. You can find it at descentmobile.info. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you next time.